the board of I was an associate editor for Ecology for a number of years, Journal of Evolutionary Biology and Evolutionary Ecology Research. As you know, today's event is hosted by the British Ecological Societies. Before we start, I wanted to thank Karen and Kate Harrison, who's assistant editor for the BES book series, for coordinating this. They've done a great job at getting us all together and helping guide us through this process. We've also got 3 associate editors for different BES journals with us today, and they're going to do most of the talking. First, we've got Steph. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Steph?
So I'm Steph Januchowski-Hartley. I'm at Université Paul Sabatier in Toulouse, France, and I primarily work in aquatic ecosystems, both fresh and saltwater, and currently I'm working on impacts of dams on fish communities here in France.
And we've got Luca.
Yeah, hello. I'm an ecologist. I am an associate professor here at Swansea University, and I'm associate editor for Journal of Animal Ecology and for Methods in Ecology and Evolution. And my research focuses on understanding both individual to biodiversity responses to environmental change.
And we've got Jane.
Hello, I'm Jane Catford. I'm a lecturer at the University of Southampton in the UK, and I've just recently moved from Australia, so getting used to the change in seasons, change in time zones. I'm a plant ecologist, and I work for, I'm an associate editor for the Journal of Ecology, and my sort of area of expertise and focus is community ecology, and particularly biological invasions and plants along rivers.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for joining us today. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask our various associate editors here a variety of questions about their job as an associate editor, how they got their job as an associate editor, what they like about it, and so on. There's also an opportunity for everyone to ask questions. You should have instructions on your screen for how to ask a question, and we'll be paying attention to what's scrolling in the box of questions. If you ask questions that we don't cover, I'll try to interject those where they're appropriate in the discussion and let our associate editors comment on those. So let's start off with Steph. What do you consider your main responsibility as an associate editor?
So I just started as associate editor at Journal of Applied Ecology, and one of the first things I got to do was to write a editor's choice, which is kind of detailed description about one of the articles that we publish in Journal of Applied Ecology, but to highlight that article and why it's representative of what we look for at Journal of Applied Ecology. So that's in addition to the kind of month-to-month expectations of reviewing and handling individual papers. So those are the 2 key things that I've been doing so far.
Jane, do you do similar sorts of things, or what is your main responsibility?
Yeah, so I haven't written an editor's choice, but so I guess so far, so I'm only a new editor at the journal, so I've only been on since July or something like that. And so far, it's mostly been handling manuscripts. So a manuscript company, the executive editor, David Gibson, who's at the Journal of Ecology, will fling it to a particular associate editor, depending on the expertise and what the paper is about. And then as the editor, the handling editor, you read through the paper once, work out whether it's a good fit, whether it should be rejected outright, whether it should go back to the authors for maybe some changes. And then if none of those are applicable, you would then send it out to review. And that involves basically looking for suitable reviewers who could have the expertise and ideally complementary expertise. So someone might cover stats and someone else might cover, survey field methods or theoretical expertise, something like that. So then it will go out, and often it seems that you have to have quite a lot of reviewers listed. So I just handled a paper this week where I selected in the end 17 reviewers, and it stopped at number 14. So the 14th reviewer was my second reviewer, and then it came back to me. So that's really been the main thing so far. And then I guess I assess what those are like. I'll review the manuscript myself and then make a decision or suggest a decision, which then goes to the executive editor to make the final decision.
Luca,
So,
you work with 2 journals. Sorry, Jane, did I interrupt you? Luca, you work with 2 different journals. Do they both, do you have sort of similar responsibilities for both of them, or are there things you do that are different between them?
No, broadly the same. So I see my role as I'm helping the executive editor obtain sufficient information to decide if we want to publish this manuscript or not. So I get it passed over to me with usually a few lines from the executive editor. Sometimes a bit more specific if they already have a specific question or concern. Other times more generic. Can you please look into this? And then I read it, as Jane said, I read it myself. I decide if it's worthwhile to send out for review, or if there are some obvious reasons why it's better not to do this. And it's increasingly difficult to find good reviewers, and reviewers are really pressed by time. So it's actually a good thing. Also, it hurts myself when I get rejected without review, but it's a good thing to try and not to send out manuscripts which obviously look not fit for the journal for a variety of reasons. Then as soon as I've done it, I actually read the manuscripts all from beginning to the end myself, and then I decide which reviewers I would like to invite. And I'm glad that also Jane had a similar experience, because I was desperate recently. I had to try out 15 reviewers until I got 2 to reassess a manuscript. So it can sometimes be a bit hard. Other times it works really well. And then another job is you have sometimes to mediate, because reviews come back with mixed quality. Some can be very useful, sometimes they can be less so, some can be nice, some can be less nice. And so you need then to decide how to handle this and provide your own evaluation and write this up in a useful way for the executive editor and provide your evaluation. I think you can do it both anonymously or putting your own name. I prefer to as editor, associate editor, put my name out. And then once this is done, you might be asked to, as soon as there's an appeal, the executive editor usually comes back to you, and you have to look into this if there are author appeals, or as I've read in other cases, if a reader has something to object to a paper, and we have even an appeal request from someone who was not an author. But these are more exceptional cases. Usually you have to handle the manuscripts, and then so sometimes you can be asked to help out with special features or virtual issues, which is something I did earlier this year.
Excellent, thanks. I would interject also that at Functional Ecology, of course, handling manuscripts is the most important thing our associate editors do. I think it's where they spend most of their time, but we also publish occasional virtual issues that are coordinated by associate editors. We're regularly asking our associate editors for advice or recommendations on review papers we should publish, special features we should publish, and many of our associate editors have participated in doing special features and things like that as well. So there's a variety of opportunities, as you also have noted at your journals too. So you've already commented that choosing reviewers is one of the challenging parts of the job, and I think Luca commented that sometimes dealing with conflicting reviews is one of the parts of the sort of challenging parts of the job. How do you deal with reviewer comments? Maybe start with Stephanie. When you have diverse reviewer comments, what do you see as your role? Are you, well, I'll give you an example. At my journal, we have a really clear policy that reviewers are not voting on papers, that the associate editor has a really important role. Maybe you can comment on how you view that.
Well, I have actually only handled one paper, and I rejected it outright, so I haven't.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, haven't dealt with this situation yet, so I might pass it on to Luca and Jane to give maybe a bit more experienced response.
Jane, do you want to comment?
To be honest, I'm sort of in a fairly similar situation to Stephanie in that the papers that I've handled for this journal and also for another one, the reviewers have actually sort of been in agreement, which in whether it's, you know, good paper but not the right for, good paper should be revised and accepted, that sort of thing. So I think that makes it much easier. But I think one of, actually, as an author, I can comment because, you know, we've all had experiences with these as well, and noticing editors. And one particular associate editor who I've been very impressed with handled a paper of mine where it was reviewed 3 times. And I think this would have been a very tricky thing for this associate editor. I was very impressed. And so one was very, very negative and kind of went for the jugular, as it were, and it was quite aggressive. And that editor handled it in a very professional way and sort of wasn't disrespectful to that reviewer, because it's obviously that reviewer's time, but also kind of to the authors communicated which things we didn't necessarily need to act on. So I see that as being a really important role of an editor, and it must be quite challenging to maintain that, I don't know, professional integrity, but also respect for both the authors and the reviewers all at once. So hopefully I'll meet that challenge when it comes, but we'll see.
Excellent. Luca, do you have additional thoughts?
I think this is one of the reasons I'm passionate about being editor, because we play, especially in these cases, an important role. And often now there's criticisms about peer review, and then, but when you read these, they often appear like whatever reviewer says, this is just passed onward, but this is not really the case, because it goes first to the associate editor, who should not be just ticking boxes, but add his own opinion and mediate probably between conflicting opinions. I sometimes ask for a third reviewer when I think that even by adding my own opinion, we should have an additional opinion. And then we put this forward also to the executive editor. And I think having these steps really helps, especially in tricky cases, because it's not always easy to decide. And what I try to, I've had cases where reviewers wrote, I've stopped reading this paper after half of the results because I'm offended and similar. So what I think you have to try is to bring it back to what the essential important points are. And then you have to think hard if you want to defend this paper, and then you have to make a good case in front of the executive editor. Why, for example, you think this should not be rejected, even though maybe one review was a bit peculiar, and why you think maybe it should get a second chance after addressing a few comments, maybe have a second round of reviews, and why in other cases maybe not, why you think the criticism, even if some of it not formulated well, is anyway so sufficient to say that maybe it's not the best candidate for going forward as a paper for the journal, giving also the pressure for space we have.
Excellent, thank you. So why did you guys decide to become editors? What sorts of thoughts were going through your head when you decided to become an editor? Maybe Jane, do you want to start us off?
I guess I wanted to be involved on a different level. So, you know, I'm an author and I'm a reviewer. And I just saw that, and I've been reviewing papers and quite a lot of papers for quite a long time now. And I guess it's just a different, in the same way that being an author and a reviewer is different one from the other, and they're also quite complementary. I see that being an associate editor just gives you another perspective on the whole publishing process. And I don't know, I think it was a big privilege to be asked to be one, so that was nice too. But it just really, I guess it's quite fulfilling being involved in the whole thing, and this is, you know, sort of what underpins a lot of science, isn't it, is peer review. And so it's nice to be part of that process and to yeah, I guess see it from that perspective and realize that it's quite hard being an editor. It's not easy, and we all moan about it from when we're authors, but it's actually quite it's a difficult position to be in.
And Jane, how did you become an associate editor? Were you approached, or did you initiate it? What was the process that got you onto an editorial board?
So I was approached. So David Gibson, who's the executive editor at the Journal of Ecology, asked me, and I think so. This year, I've just sort of published 2 papers in the journal, so I guess he had handled those and maybe seen some of my work in that way, and we'd sort of interacted a little bit through that. And then I think probably what the clincher was, I don't really know. It's a bit of a mystery to me why I was asked, but I think some of the other associate editors at the journal recommended me from what David said. So I think some people put my name forward. So I don't know him personally.
Stephanie, I think you joined slightly differently, right? You answered an open call. Could you talk a little bit about why you did that and how you did that?
Yeah, well, I was encouraged by Mark, who's the head editor for Journal of Applied Ecology, to apply for the open call. But I actually had thought that I didn't have enough experience, and so I questioned him on it, and I actually said, oh, maybe I should apply for the mentorship opportunity, which is what Journal of Applied Ecology has, a mentorship program where you can apply to kind of be a mentee and work alongside with a associate editor. So I applied and had ticked the box that I would be interested in having that opportunity, but they ended up giving me the full associate editor position. So I think it was worth going for it in the end. And yeah, so that's kind of the steps that went on for my situation.
Luca, did you join both of your editorial boards in a similar way or differently, or how is your experience different from Steph or James?
I actually put my name forward because I thought that being an editor is an important task, and often we complain about editors not doing their job, and so usually my way forward is to say, if you complain about something, then you should put your name forward and try to do it properly. So I thought it would be an important thing to do. So I approached the editors at Journal of Animal Ecology and Methods in Ecology Evolution, for whom I had been already reviewing since many years, so they knew me well. And I had reviewed for many other journals. I think at that time I had done at least 100 reviews for different journals. And I put my name forward, and my expectation was actually that they would say yes, maybe in a year or so, or in some time, but then both said, yes, join us, and I said, oh, wow. So I thought a little bit about it, but then because these are 2 complementary journals, really important for what I do in my research, I decided to accept both. Also because as I had put my name forward, I said, oh, I can't say no now. And this is how I came in.
Excellent. I would actually encourage everyone who's listening, if you want to be an associate editor, obviously if there's a call or you get an invitation, that's great. But even if you don't, if you're interested, you should contact the senior editors of the journal. You might be surprised that they'll be enthusiastic about being contacted. One of the things that's really important is that we have people that are motivated, enthusiastic, that really want to do the job. Those are the people that are going to do the best job. So if you're interested, reach out to the editors of the journal that interest you. It's obviously worked for Luca and Stephanie here, and you should consider that as a possibility if you want to join an editorial board. Luca, how much time do you allocate to being an editor? I know you've got the 2 different editorial positions, but just pick one of them. How much time does it take? And how much does it detract from other responsibilities, like your research or other things that you would be doing with that time?
It can be challenging at times. I tend to invest a lot because I actually read the whole papers. It depends a bit between different journals if editors actually read in detail the paper or not. To give an idea, I asked today for the statistics. So last year I've done for both journals around 12 manuscripts, but since I joined in 2013, I've done 55 for Methods and 65 for Journal of Animal Ecology. which includes also submissions. And there have been some periods where it was quite intense, especially when I was asked to deal with a special feature, which really involved quite a lot of time every single week. And other times it's really a bit of bust and boom. So I think in the next month we will have again a high influx, because everyone wants to clear his desk before Christmas. Usually around July or so, everyone wants to clear his desk before going out to summer, which is really a problem, because then in summer you never find good reviewers, so you spend lots of time trying to find a reviewer. And in other times it's less. I can't really say how much hours I spend per week, because I don't really write this down, but it on average, it can be a few hours per week.
Jane, is your experience the same?
Yeah, I would say it broadly is actually. So I think it's almost like when you review a paper. Some papers are really quick. If they're a clear accept, not much to do. Some papers are a clear reject, not much to write. It's those in-between ones, and so I think they do take them. And I think, probably with more experience, editors become faster. But I think I'm still in that early editing phase where I'm actually taking it quite seriously and sort of really considering hard. And so it's just really interesting. So as a reviewer, which I've done for quite a long time now, it's sort of quite freeing. You make a recommendation, but that's not the final one, and that someone else is going to be making the call in the end. But then when you're in this handling it position, it's a fair bit more influential, and so I sort of think about them a bit harder. And if you're going to recommend revisions, they've got to be important revisions and worthwhile. And if you're not equally, I don't know. So I have been taking a while, but I suspect it's going to vary depending on the paper.
Steph, you had indicated earlier that you were hesitant to respond to the call, Journal of Applied to call for new associate editors, and that Mark convinced you otherwise. One of the questions we have is, at what stage of one's career would you advise to become an editor or to contact a journal? Maybe you could comment on why you were hesitant and what Mark convinced you otherwise, and that might be relevant to some of the people that are listening.
Sure. So I can use my example and also some other early career researcher examples that I know. So I was more hesitant of if I had the experience of reviewing enough papers to be an editor. So I had thought, well, if I was a mentee, then I would at least be certain that after going through that process that I had the knowledge and experience. Mark didn't really convince me otherwise. I just applied and then they made the decision. So I guess in that regard, it's worth applying either way and letting them make the decision and giving it your best shot. And in terms of at what stage of the career, so I'm a postdoc. I've been out of my PhD for about 5 years. And this was the first time I've been approached by a journal or even thought about being an editor. I have a pretty specialized area of research, so that might also have had an influence on my decision. But other people who have a little bit broader area of research, for example, one of my colleagues, I'm pretty sure, was associate or handling editor for diversity and distributions, like 1 year out of our PhD. So, and I'm sure he actually approached them, and I know other people have approached conservation biology just with 1 or 2 years outside of their PhD. So I think that might be a good time, but I don't know if others have other experiences.
Luca, what would you advise, given the amount of time that you dedicate to, do you think that a younger researcher should be allocating time to being an editor, or should they be waiting till a little later in their career?
If they're really hard pressed, and let's say between their fieldwork or lab work and applications, maybe they might want to wait a little bit. On the other hand, it's a plus point on your CV. if you're making applications for positions, especially if it's for a good journal. However, in my case, I joined. I was around 5-6 years out of my PhD when I joined. 6 years, I think, when I joined the editorial board, and I had been a review editor, so half on an editorial board of another journal before.
Yeah, as an executive editor, I would suggest that something like 5 or 6 years out of your PhD is a really good time, because you've got enough experience at that point that you're really familiar with the literature. You've got enough experience reviewing and writing papers to understand sort of what's expected of a good manuscript, good science. But you're also now hopefully at least secure enough in your career that allocating some time to being an editor isn't too costly. I think if you do it a little bit too early, there can be a cost in that. We do expect quite a bit from our editors, and if your career is not yet secure yet, that's probably not something you should be doing. But I personally like younger people. They tend to be more enthusiastic. The early career scientists, by the time you get more senior people, they've learned where they can cut corners and maybe have a much greater diversity of responsibilities. Maybe a little more set in their way. So the people that are 5 up to 10 years, maybe post-PhD, I think are the kinds of people that are really perfect for our journals. That's my opinion anyways. I can't speak for the other executive editors. They may think differently. But.
Yeah, I would second this. So or at least for myself, I wouldn't hire myself as I was 1 or 2 years out of my PhD. I think I improved a lot how I was writing reviews over the years, and I gained more experience with my own publications of what I thought was a good editor and what was a less good editor.
Yeah, good point. Jane, what's your favorite thing about being an editor, and would you do it again? I know you haven't been an editor very long yet, but you're still enthusiastic. You made a good decision to join an editorial board.
Yeah, I'm actually really loving it. I think it's the thrill, isn't it? When you start something new. I mean, it's challenging. It's much more challenging than being a reviewer, but that's kind of enjoyable and exciting as well. And what do I love about it? I guess it's being really so involved in the whole process, seeing it from that different perspective. But probably I was thinking of this. What I really like is thinking of reviewers, and for that paper where I came up with 17, the first 5 immediately came to mind, but then beyond that you start thinking, and you've also got to think about people, the biggest people in your field, it's unlikely that they're going to have time to review, so there's no point sending it to them, and so it's sort of looking around a bit more at the postdocs and recent PhD graduates who are coming through, and so I've discovered some really great researchers in that way and some really nice work, and been just super impressed by these reviews that come back. And I don't know, so it's quite heartwarming as well, isn't it? That people are willing to put this time in, and I feel quite appreciative. So I guess that's another thing which is a bit unexpected, but I've really been enjoying that.
And Steph, how was the experience of writing, stepping in and writing an editor's choice? Was that so? Because you've not done that before, I assume, and your very first task was writing an editor's choice. How did that go? How did you choose the paper you wanted to pick, and give us some insights into that process?
Sure. Yeah, I was really nervous, but Alice, who works for Journal of Applied Ecology, is really great, and she was like, you don't have to be nervous. So she sent me some examples from other people, and I've done some blogging, so it's a blog form. The editor's choice that you write is kind of like a blog form of writing, and it's just to basically highlight why this paper is exceptional and why it's a really good representation of what we want for the journal. Sorry, what was the rest of the question? I can think of.
Oh, that was more or less it. How you approached it and how that experience was for you.
Oh, and so yeah, the way I approached it was to look at other examples and to also think about what I found interesting. So I read the whole paper and then tried to highlight things that I personally found interesting in addition to what the authors highlighted. And along with the blog form, they also include some really fun illustrations and examples from the paper. So it was really rewarding because then you get to tweet about this cool paper that's now online and freely accessible to any readers. And it's kind of an interesting way of communicating about some interesting research outside of our usual kind of long form scientific writing. So it's good.
Excellent. Luca, what's something about the journals you're working with that you or your experience as an editor that you really don't like? What's something you have to do that you would rather not have to do, but someone has to do as an editor?
Rejecting papers.
Rejecting
manuscripts.
Okay.
Manuscripts. I think we really don't like doing this, and I don't think I'm exceptional in this. Because you know how it feels, and often maybe you have to suggest rejecting a paper just because there are others which are better. And I think a good thing is that we now have this opportunity to suggest if these are forward to ecology and evolution, because now I've seen that increasingly authors actually like this option, because there are many papers which are good, but which for specific reasons don't make the cut of being the really top 15% as others. So we have to make a choice because of space limitation, but we can offer the option with Ecology and Evolution sister journal. So all reviews are passed on, so you don't have to start a completely new again.
What are the major criteria you consider when you're deciding? You've got two excellent papers in front of you, or at least two very good papers in front of you. You really can't accept every good paper you get. What are sort of the major things that make a really great paper stand out and appropriate for your journals? Sorry, Luca, I was following up.
Oh, okay. I really think about hard what has been published so far. So if there are two papers and they are equally good, but one has a topic which has been already covered, but another one is really new, has a new study system or really exciting new method, which I think might reach a broader audience, then I express this view. And luckily, it's even not only my own decision. So this is the opinion. Then I recommendation I pass on to the executive editor, and then they have also their own view of it. But this is what I try to think. Which one is the best pick for the journal, given the aim of the journal and what has been published in the last times.
Steph, you noted that you've handled one paper so far and you declined that one without sending it out for review. Sort of what was the, without of course anything about the specific paper, what sort of general criteria did you use for making that decision?
Yeah, similar to what Luca just outlined, thinking about the topic. So it was a topic that I had seen written quite a bit about, so there was quite a bit of existing literature about it. So then my next question was, well, what is this paper adding that's interesting or new? And if I couldn't answer that there was something interesting or new and that I thought that this also ticked the box of aims of Journal of Applied Ecology, that leads me down the track of starting to question if it's something that I would accept for publication. So that's kind of the steps that I took along the way for that paper.
Jane, was that your experience also? Is that how you approached it?
I would say so. So, I mean, yeah, I can't really add more to that. No, I think that's the case. It's sort of, I mean, you read the whole paper as you would a reviewer, and I think we owe it to, I don't know, I mean, I've received papers as a reviewer which I don't think should ever have gone out for review. So I think it's a really, although it's been hard to reject and you feel it for the authors, it's a really big responsibility, I think, and it's one, you know, you should, that's what you're doing as a handling editor. You should be able to say, sorry, this isn't suitable. And it, you know, it's beneficial for everyone. It's beneficial for reviewers, and it's beneficial ultimately for the authors to get the paper back more quickly.
Yeah, I would agree with all the points that have been made. As an executive editor, I actually reject nearly half of what we get before the associate editors even see it. Maybe a little bit less than half, but nearly so. And my attitude is, since we can publish only a very small proportion of what we get, I would rather authors be able to move on quickly. So I try to make informed decisions, but oftentimes I have to make a judgment call of whether this is likely to fare well in peer review, and whether our associate editors are going to like it, and get it back to the authors as quickly as I can if I'm fairly confident that it's not ultimately going to be published in the journal. We got another question here. Are methods in ecology and evolution and our Journal of Animal Ecology on the search for new associate editors at the moment? I don't actually know the answer to that. Luca, do you know? Or is methods looking for new editors? Have there been any queries to the editorial board for ideas?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go. You were muted, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. We were considering for both journals, especially something in the area of movement ecology or movement-related research. And the editors had asked me about potential ideas of names for associate editors.
Excellent. I would encourage you to contact the journals, even if you're not sure they're looking for someone, because the worst they can say is not right now or no thank you. Definitely contact. I think the most important criteria we have is people that are enthusiastic about the job. It is a reasonable amount of work, and if we have people that are enthusiastic about it, they tend to do a better job, tend to put effort into it. So please definitely contact. The audience hasn't asked very many questions, so maybe let me ask you guys, Luca, Steph, or Jane, are there things we haven't talked about that you think we should cover today? I've run through most of the questions that I had on my list. None?
Well, I was just going to add a few things about what's rewarding about it. I think Jane might have said a few things, but I was also thinking that getting to kind of, well, I mean, I think all of these journals are kind of at the cutting edge of where research is, especially in fields of ecology, evolution, and conservation. And so getting to see the papers that are coming through and also those that are going forward and helping direct where the journal is going is really rewarding, and I'm excited by that opportunity, even if I've just started. And I think that when I communicated that to Mark and Alice, that also, like you said, Chuck, made them interested in me. So being excited about this kind of opportunity and seeing that as a potential is something you can maximize as an associate editor, I think.
Yeah, and one way you can have a lot of influence is if you're active not just with the papers that are sent to you, but if you're out recruiting papers at meetings, if you're suggesting, say, special features or review papers that the journal should be publishing. We know that, for example, at Functional Ecology, if we publish a special feature, we tend to get a lot of papers in that subject area over the next couple of years, because we are, in a sense, advertising that this is an area that we consider important and that we cover. So there's a lot of opportunity there to recruit new papers to the journal and change the direction, influence the direction of the journal in the future. Jane, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? What do you consider most rewarding, or what do you look forward most to in the future at the journal?
I guess, I mean, it's being at the cutting edge of the field as well and seeing it all come through. I think that's just super exciting to see things which haven't even gone out for yet. So it keeps you really ahead of the game. And I imagine as you're handling, if you're handling the number of papers that Luca has or that you would, Chuck, you're really getting a real sense of where the field's going and kind of how quickly it's going there, and seeing new people kind of come up as well. So I think that's always really exciting. So sometimes you come across a new author who you haven't seen before, probably because they're a PhD student coming through, and then you see this really, really cool work, and so that's really exciting. So yeah, I think that's a really fun bit of it.
Can I add?
Go ahead.
Yeah. What I also like is to see how people evaluate the paper and the opinion, because of course I have my own opinion, but then I see what reviewers say about it, and sometimes it's quite illuminating, because all of a sudden you see the point that you hadn't thought about it at all. And I have learned a lot by going through this process with all of these papers, and I find it really exciting.
Excellent. We do have a couple of questions that have cropped up here in our chat. One of them is that one of the functions of peer review is to provide feedback to authors. In cases where you reject a paper without sending it out for review, do you provide in-depth comments to the authors, or do you just sort of reject it outside of scope or novelty? I'll comment real briefly first and then turn it over to you guys. I reject quite a few papers with fairly brief comments because I handle, as executive editor, I see a lot of papers that are outside my area of expertise, and we get a lot of papers that are just far too specialized. They should go to, say, specialist journals or regional journals, taxonomically focused journals. And so a lot of those I reject with very brief comments that I think it's more appropriate for a different kind of journal. And occasionally I get papers that are clearly really good papers, but there's very clear reasons why I think they don't fit, and I do try to explain those when it's not just a matter of scope or fit to the journal. What about you, Luca? You've been with the journals long enough to have declined a lot of papers, so go ahead.
A few. Yeah, for Journal of Animal Ecology and also for methods, we are actually supposed to motivate why we think the paper should be rejected without going out for review. So in a certain sense, we have to provide this sort of review ourselves, and we are not supposed to reject it with just a free brief cursory note. So we should really make our point, and also because it's not our own decision, but we make still a recommendation to the executive editor. So we have to motivate our decision.
Excellent. Jane, do you think being an editor has improved your own science? That's a great question. Are there personal rewards beyond just the, I mean, obviously you get a reward because you like doing the job, but does it feed back to the quality of your science or the quality of your writing?
Yeah, definitely. So that's a really, really good thing. So I think, looking at how to pitch a paper and to write a paper and what's good communication, that's one thing, but also, I mean, yeah, definitely. So it makes me look broadly in the literature to see who else is publishing in it and see which authors are coming up and what's happening. So that's good. So I'm probably more literate now more abreast of the literature. And I think you get ideas about how to present things, but I think as well that question about science is a good one, because again, if as an editor, like I handled a paper just last week, which the two reviewers, very, very good. They didn't pick up something about the stats, and I had a feeling about some of these stats that I wasn't quite comfortable with them. But normally as a reviewer, I would have just said, oh, I think there's something a bit fishy. But as an editor, I looked into that. So it made, now I've learned a bit more statistics, which is a good thing. So I think it sort of forces you to do that as well, which is definitely good.
I also think that highlights one of the things that's both easier and harder about being an editor than being a reviewer. On the one hand, it's easier because you're getting reviewers advising you. On the other hand, it's harder because you need to make sure you understand what the reviewers are saying so that you can convey that to the authors to help the authors improve their paper, whether you're going to accept it ultimately or not. Your job is to help convey what the reviewers are saying to the authors. I think we're about out of time. I thank everyone for participating today. Thanks to Luca, Steph, and Jane for joining us and telling us about their perspectives. If you have any other final thoughts, Luca, Steph, or Jane, take a moment to express those.
Well, if you were asking about how to become an associate editor, and I think if the editors and associate editors know you because of your reviews and know that you're doing really good reviews and consistently, then this is actually very likely that at every occasion when it comes, they might propose your name as a potential associate editor, because they know you know well how to do the job.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, and I would add to that that even if we didn't identify you from your reviews, we're probably going to look at your reviews before we invite you to see if you put a sufficient amount of effort into the reviews that you wrote before we would invite an editor. Of course, if you haven't reviewed for the journal, then we wouldn't have that information. Steph or Jane, any final thoughts? Okay, well, thank you. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. I had a great time. I hope this was instructive. I'll remind you again that we're going to have an event at the BES annual meeting that everyone is welcome to attend, the breakfast. You can get more details from the website or email. And thank you all for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.